The harsh truth of Earth for weeks, the Halorians lived in wonder. The humans had come with fire and thunder, yet they spoke of healing and rebuilding. Machines worked day and night, clearing rubble, planting strange seeds, and digging deep into the poisoned soil. The Halorians whispered among themselves that their saviors had arrived, that their children would live, and that their world would be green again. But soon, stories began to spread. The humans did not only build, they taught. In the crowded city squares, human officers stood tall and spoke about Earth. At first, the Halorians listened with wide eyes, eager to learn about the home of their saviors. They expected to hear tales of shining utopias, of endless peace and wisdom. Instead, what they heard chilled their hearts. Earth was not a paradise. Earth was a battlefield. The humans told stories of endless storms that could sweep entire towns into the sea. They spoke of deserts so hot they could kill a man in hours, and of mountains that froze the strongest warriors solid in minutes. They described creatures with fangs, claws, venom, and hunger so fierce that only the most careful survived. One soldier laughed as he explained, "On our world, even the plants can kill. Some burn your skin, others poison your blood. On Earth, danger lives in every shadow." The Halorians shivered. Their own world was harsh now, poisoned by their own mistakes. But it had not always been so. Once it was gentle, filled with soft winds and easy harvests. They could not imagine being born into a place where every step, every breath, and every meal was a fight for survival. Yet the humans told these stories with pride. They did not weep when speaking of disasters. They did not tremble when describing wars. They smiled. They called themselves survivors, Deathworlders, children of a planet that tried every day to kill them, and failed. The Halorians began to see a different picture. The kindness in human words was true, but it was the kindness of wolves watching over lambs. Behind every smile was the memory of struggle. Behind every gentle promise was the weight of 1,000 wars. One night in a darkened hall, a group of young Halorians gathered to listen to a human commander. He was tall, his face marked with scars, his voice calm and steady. "Do not mistake our mercy for weakness," he said. "On Earth, mercy is rare. We learned long ago that only the strong survive. If we help you, it is because we believe you may yet be strong enough to endure. But if you choose weakness—" He paused, his eyes sharp as blades. "Then nature will finish what it began." The room was silent. No Halorian dared to answer. They felt the weight of those words, heavy as chains. In the following days, more truths revealed themselves. Human medicine worked wonders, curing diseases the Halorians thought untreatable. But the medicine came with rules. It was given first to those who cooperated with human plans. The sick who resisted were left to suffer. Human food grew quickly, in the poisoned soil. But the seeds were guarded. Only human soldiers decided where they would be planted, who would eat, and who would wait. The Halorians began to whisper again. Some called the humans saviors still, believing their harshness was simply the way of a people forged by a cruel world. Others called them conquerors, using kindness as a mask for control. A Halorian mother watched her child swallow human medicine and live. She wept with joy, kissing the soldier's boots. But that same night she saw her neighbor's child denied the same cure because his father spoke against the humans. Her joy turned to dread. The council met once more. "We asked for help," one elder said, "and they gave it. But they also chain us with it." Another argued, "Would you rather they let us die? Earth is strong because Earth is cruel. Perhaps they can teach us the same strength." But the youngest among them shook her head. "They are not teaching us. They are testing us. They are shaping us, but not for our sake, for theirs." Far above, the human fleet circled the planet like silent vultures. They were patient, watching, waiting. The Halorians had asked for help, and they had received it. But now they saw the truth. Humans did not see themselves as saviors. They saw themselves as survivors bringing survival on their own terms. To the humans, mercy was not free. Mercy was a weapon. Mercy was power. And as the Halorians looked into the steel eyes of their guests, they wondered, had they invited salvation, or had they invited their end? Help turns to power at first. The Halorians believed the humans had come as guardians. Food grew again in the soil, strange glowing plants that survived where nothing else lived. Clean water poured from giant machines the humans had built near rivers and seas. Medicine cured the weak and brought life back to the dying. For the first time in decades, hope seemed real. But hope came with conditions. Every gift was given in measured doses. Food was shared, but only in places where humans had set up command posts. Water flowed, but only through pipes the humans controlled. Medicine was distributed, but only to those who worked alongside human projects. Slowly, without realizing it, the Halorians' survival no longer depended on themselves. It depended on the humans. At first, no one questioned this. Gratitude drowned out fear. But whispers began to grow. A farmer noticed that his land, once fertile, had been taken over by human machines. They said it was for better crops, but now he was forbidden from touching his own soil. A merchant saw human banners hanging over the marketplace, where soldiers stood watch like rulers. An elder tried to protest when her people were forced to carry supplies for human soldiers. But the protest ended with silence, and no one ever saw her again. The Halorians began to realize help had turned into control. The humans worked with smiles and calm voices, but every action was precise, planned, and unshakable. When they entered a village, they did not ask what was needed, they decided. They drew maps, built walls, stationed guards. Slowly, the Halorian cities no longer belonged to them. One night, in a council meeting, the youngest elder spoke, in anger. They say they bring survival, but what kind of survival is this? We cannot choose. We cannot decide. We live only if they allow it. An older counselor shook his head. Would you prefer death? Without them, we would all be gone already. Their ways are harsh, but they are alive. Perhaps this is the price of survival. But the young elder did not agree. She whispered words that spread quickly among the people. If we are not free, then we are not truly alive. The humans, of course, heard these whispers. Nothing escaped their notice. One morning, in the capital city, the human commander gathered the Halorian council and spoke plainly. We did not come here to rule you, she said, her voice steady. We came because you called for help, but help is not free. On Earth, nothing is free. Every gift must be earned. Every life must be fought for. If you cannot understand this, then you cannot survive. The words were not shouted, not cruel. They were spoken with calm certainty as if they were natural law. And in a way they were. To the humans, survival had always been earned in blood and struggle. To the Halorians, it felt like chains. Tension grew in the streets. Some Halorians began to admire the humans. They saw discipline, order, and strength they had never known. They believed the humans were not conquerors, but teachers. If they obeyed, if they learned, perhaps they too could become strong. These Halorians worked side by side with human soldiers, even dressing in their uniforms, carrying their weapons, calling themselves allies. But others resisted. They remembered the beauty of their world before the humans arrived. They remembered when their choices were their own. To them, every human machine was not a gift, but a sign of conquest. Every flag was a reminder that their world was no longer theirs. The first true clash came in a mining valley. The humans discovered rich veins of metal deep under the Halorian mountains. They sent their machines to dig, their soldiers to guard, and their engineers to claim it. But the valley was sacred to the Halorians. Their ancestors were buried there, and no outsider had ever touched the land. The Halorian villagers begged the humans to leave it untouched. The humans listened, nodded, and then continued digging. That night, a group of Halorian fighters attacked. Armed with old weapons and desperate courage, they struck the human machines. Explosions lit the sky, and for a brief moment the Halorians believed they had won. But humans did not break so easily. The next day, Soldiers arrived in force. Their movements were fast, their weapons precise, their discipline unshakable. In less than an hour, the valley was silent. The fighters were gone. The villagers were scattered. The mines returned to human control. The Halorians who survived whispered in horror. They had asked for help. And now, help had destroyed their sacred valley. The human commander spoke again, her voice sharp this time. Do not fight us. We did not come to destroy you. But we will not stop. This world can live again, but only if you accept our way. If you resist, you will not survive. The Halorians listened, fear and anger burning in their hearts. Some bowed their heads and obeyed. Others clenched their fists, swearing they would never bend. Help had turned to power. Power had turned to rule. And now the line between savior and conqueror had vanished. Above them, the human fleet still circled, silent and watchful. Their ships gleamed like blades in the darkness. To the Halorians, they no longer looked like angels. They looked like a storm, unstoppable, merciless, and forever hungry. The call for help. The stars were silent for thousands of years. Across the endless void, civilizations rose and fell, but their voices never touched Earth. Then, one night, a signal came. It was weak, broken, like a cry whispered through the dark. No one on Earth expected it. Yet when scientists captured it, they knew at once it was not human. The message was desperate. Help us. Our world is dying. Please. The words repeated again and again in a trembling voice. Behind the words, the sound of chaos, screams, fire, storms. It was the voice of a people standing at the edge of extinction. The aliens called themselves the Halorians. Once they lived in shining cities above crystal seas. They believed in wisdom, in peace, in harmony with their world. But peace had not saved them. Their soil was poisoned, their skies filled with smoke, their crops gone to dust. War broke out among them as nations fought for the last drops of water, the last seeds of food. They thought they were strong. They thought they could endure. But in the end, they looked to the stars for salvation. And in the stars, they saw Earth. The Halorians had studied human broadcasts for centuries. Fragments of radio, television, and digital signals bleeding into space. To them, Earth seemed full of strength, full of courage. They saw images of humans building towers of glass, flying into the heavens, walking on their moon. They saw humans sing, laugh, cry, and fight. Above all, they saw hope. So with their last remaining power, the Halorians built a transmitter. They focused all their energy into one final call, and they sent it across light years. They asked humanity for help. When the message reached Earth, it caused fear and wonder. Governments argued in secret chambers. Scientists debated through sleepless nights. Was it real? Was it safe? Should humans answer? For weeks, the world was filled with questions. Yet, for all the doubts, one truth was clear. The Halorians were alive, and they were waiting. In the end, Earth chose to answer. The Halorians watched the sky. They counted the days. They prayed for the sound of engines, for the light of ships breaking through their atmosphere. And one day the heavens opened. The first human ship arrived like a giant shadow. Its hull was black steel, scarred by past battles. Engines roared like thunder as it entered the alien skies. To the Halorians, it was both terrifying and beautiful. They had asked for angels, but what came looked more like warriors. The humans stepped out in heavy armor, their boots striking the ground with power. They were taller, stronger, their movements sharp and controlled. Their eyes scanned everything with a soldier's caution. Yet when they spoke, their voices carried warmth. We heard your call. We have come to help. The Halorians wept. To them, this was the answer to their prayers. They knelt, offering gifts, songs, and tears of gratitude. The humans accepted their thanks with calm faces, but behind their eyes, there was something else, something the Halorians could not yet understand. For humans did not come from a gentle world. Earth was not a place of peace and safety. Earth was a battlefield, a crucible where only the strong survived. Every storm, every predator, every war had shaped them into something fierce. They were not saviors born of paradise. They were survivors born of fire. The Halorians did not know this. Not yet. All they saw were powerful beings who had crossed the stars to save them. They did not see the cost that would come. They did not see the shadow hidden inside the promise. That night the Halorians celebrated under broken skies. Fires still burned in their cities, smoke still rose from their dying lands, but they danced with hope. They believed tomorrow would be better. They believed humans would bring life, not destruction. But the humans stood silent, watching. To them, this dying world was not only a place to save, it was also a place to claim. The call for help had been answered. The story of survival had begun. The arrival of Earth's fleet. The Halorians thought one ship was a miracle. They believed those first humans who landed were the saviors of their world. But what came next shook their skies, their seas, and even their hearts. Days after the first landing, the horizon burned with light. Dozens of ships appeared in orbit, sliding out of the blackness of space like silent predators. Some were as large as cities, their metal skins scarred and patched. Others were sleek, fast, shaped like blades. The Halorians looked up in wonder and fear. They had never seen such power gathered in one place. The humans called it a fleet. To them, this was not unusual. They traveled the galaxy with the discipline of soldiers, always ready for danger. But to the Halorians, this was something beyond imagination. The largest ship, a massive fortress of steel, entered the atmosphere. Clouds tore apart as its engines roared. Waves rose on the oceans below and the ground shook. The Halorians watched from their ruined cities, whispering prayers. Some fell to their knees, convinced gods had come. Others hid in terror, thinking demons had arrived to finish what their wars had begun. From the ship's belly, smaller craft descended, human landing carriers. They spread across the land, settling in the cities, the farmlands, even the deserts. Everywhere they landed, the air filled with smoke, dust, and thunder. Then the humans walked out. They came in groups, wearing strange armor that shone in the dim light. Their weapons were slung across their shoulders, tools of destruction that the Halorians had no names for. Yet their movements were calm, their faces steady. They did not march like invaders. They walked like workers who had come for a task. One of the Halorian elders stepped forward, trembling. His voice cracked as he spoke. "You have answered us. You have come to save us." The human leader removed her helmet. Her hair was cut short, her face hard, but her eyes softened when she looked at the elder. "We heard your call," she said. "We will help, but you must trust us." The Halorians cheered. Relief spread like fire through the crowd. Children ran forward to touch the human's armor. Women offered flowers, though the petals wilted in the poisoned air. Men bowed deeply, giving thanks. For the first time in many years, hope returned, but behind the humans' kindness there was calculation. Their eyes scanned the terrain, marking resources, measuring strength. Every building, every road, every weapon left behind in Halorian hands was noted. At night, the Halorians celebrated. They built fires, sang songs, and danced under broken stars. They spoke of tomorrow as if tomorrow was already safe. Yet the humans did not join the dances. They gathered in their camps, speaking in low voices, checking their machines, sharpening their blades. A young Halorian boy sneaked close to one of the human camps. His eyes were wide with curiosity. He wanted to see the strange devices they carried, the glowing screens, the machines that hummed like living beasts. But what he heard chilled him. The humans were not speaking of saving the Halorians. They were speaking of surviving here themselves. "The air is thin," one soldier said, "but it can be fixed. The soil is dead, but with treatment it will grow again," another answered. "Plenty of minerals in the mountains," a third added. "Enough to fuel us for decades." The boy did not understand every word, but he understood enough. Humans were not only here for mercy, they were here because this world had value. The next morning, more ships landed. This time they carried not soldiers but machines, giant engines that shook the ground. They began to clear the ruins, to dig into the earth, to build new structures. The Halorians believed these were gifts, a promise of rebuilding. But the humans were not rebuilding Halorian cities. They were building their own. The Halorian Council met in secret. Some were uneasy. "They say they are here to help," one elder whispered. "But I see an army, not healers." Another shook his head. "We are weak. Without them, we will die. Let them do as they wish. At least we will live." The youngest among them clenched her fists. "If we trust them blindly, we may not live as free people. We may live as their servants." But the majority chose hope over fear. They told their people to welcome the humans, to open their homes, to share what little food remained. And so the Halorians smiled when they saw human soldiers in their streets. They pretended not to notice when human banners began to fly above their buildings. The fleet had arrived like saviors. Yet to sharp eyes it looked more like the first step of conquest. Above them, in the endless dark, more ships waited. Silent. Watching. Ready. The Halorians had called for help. And help had come. But in their hearts a question grew. What price would they pay? The first clash the Halorians had lived in fear before. They had feared famine, disease, and war with their own kind. But now, a new fear spread through their world. Fear of the humans they had invited. At first, the resistance was small. Just whispers in the streets, secret meetings in dark cellars, a farmer hiding stolen seeds, a miner refusing to dig for human machines, a mother who taught her children to never bow, even when soldiers demanded it. But whispers grew into voices, and voices turned into action. The spark came from the valley where the ancestors slept. The humans had claimed the sacred land, tearing into it with drills and fire. The Halorians mourned in silence, but among them were those who could not accept silence any longer. They called themselves the Freeborn. The Freeborn were not an army. They were farmers, miners, students, and broken soldiers from old Halorian wars. Their weapons were outdated rifles, sharpened blades, even hunting spears. But they carried something more dangerous than weapons. Desperation. One night, under the pale light of their dying moon, the Freeborn struck. They attacked a human outpost at the edge of the valley. The guards fell in the first moments, surprised by the sudden rush of fire and steel. Explosions lit the sky as the Freeborn destroyed fuel tanks and supply crates. For the first time since the humans had arrived, the Halorians tasted victory. The news spread fast. Across the cities, whispers became shouts. "We can fight them. We can win." Children laughed in the streets. Men and women dared to dream of freedom again. But hope was short-lived. The humans did not ignore the attack. They did not retreat. They responded. At dawn, the sky filled with fire. Dropships roared across the horizon, armored vehicles rolled through the valley, and soldiers marched with cold precision. The humans moved like a single machine, every step calculated, every action perfect. The Freeborn tried to resist. They set traps in the forests, rolled boulders onto roads, and rained bullets from the cliffs. For a moment it seemed their courage might hold, but courage was not enough. The humans adapted. They dismantled traps before they sprung. They turned every ambush into a slaughter. Their weapons struck with deadly accuracy, cutting through armor, walls, and even mountainsides. Where Halorians fought with chaos, the humans fought with order. Where Halorians bled in fear, the humans advanced in silence. In less than a day, the Freeborn were broken. The survivors told stories that chilled every ear. They spoke of human soldiers who moved faster than thought, who fought with the strength of machines. They spoke of weapons that burned entire squads into ash in seconds. They spoke of eyes, cold, sharp, and unshaken by death. The Halorians realized something dreadful. To the humans, this was not war. This was training. One captured, Freeborn fighter said it best before his execution. "We fought as if our lives depended on it. They fought as if it was just another day. The Halorian Council met in fear. Some urged surrender. We cannot match them. We are dust compared to their storms. If we resist again, we will all be gone. But others refused. If we surrender, now we will never be free. They will rule us forever. Better to die standing than live on our knees. The debate tore the council apart. Some left to join the humans, seeking safety and obedience. Others vanished into the wilderness carrying weapons and hope. The humans, meanwhile, made their message clear. The commander of the fleet addressed the Halorian people through their own broadcasting towers. Her voice filled every home, every street, every broken ruin. "We did not come to conquer you," she said. "We came because you asked. But your resistance proves you do not yet understand. Survival is not given. It is earned. On Earth, weakness is death. If you wish to live, you must learn our way. If you fight us, you will not only lose, you will erase yourselves from existence." Her words were calm, not shouted. That made them even more terrifying. After the clash, the humans tightened their grip. Checkpoints rose on every road. Markets were watched by armed soldiers. Entire villages were relocated to make way for human machines. Life no longer belonged to the Halorians, it belonged to their saviors. But something else grew in the shadows. The defeat of the freeborn was not the end. It was the beginning. The stories of their bravery spread farther than fear of their failure. Children whispered their names, rebels copied their symbols, and songs of their sacrifice echoed in hidden corners of the world. The humans had crushed the first resistance, but in doing so they had planted a seed of fire, and seeds once buried have a way of growing. The awakening. The valley was quiet now. Where once the freeborn had shouted war cries and fought with desperate courage, only ruins remained. The humans had won, and the Halorians had lost. But in that silence, something strange began to grow. Not just fear, but awareness. The Halorians started to see the truth. They had thought humans were gods or demons. They had thought humans came only to destroy, or only to save. But the reality was far more complicated. The humans were not gods. They were not demons. They were survivors. Survivors of a world harsher than anything the Halorians had ever known. Whispers spread in the cities, in the villages, even in the labor camps where Halorians now worked beside human machines. Stories of Earth passed from mouth to mouth. Stories told by human soldiers not with shame but with pride. One soldier spoke of fire raining from the sky, entire cities swallowed by bombs, and yet humanity endured. Another told of storms that leveled lands, floods that drowned nations, and still humanity endured. A third laughed as he recalled beasts with claws longer than a man's arm, predators that hunted humans for sport, and still humanity endured. The Halorians listened, wide-eyed. To them, survival had always meant compromise, retreat, avoidance. But to humans, survival meant fighting back. It meant clawing victory from the jaws of death itself. For the first time, some Halorians began to admire their conquerors. They saw strength where they had seen cruelty. They saw lessons where they had seen commands. Maybe, some whispered, they are not here to rule us. Maybe they are here to make us strong like them. But not all agreed. Others spat at the idea. They remembered the burned valley, the broken families, the banners flying above their sacred halls. This is not teaching, they argued. This is domination. They do not want us strong. They want us obedient. The divide grew sharper each day. One afternoon, a human commander gathered a group of Halorian workers. He pointed to the machines, to the fields now green with Earth's crops, and he said, "Look at what we build. This is survival. This is strength. If you walk with us, you will live. If you fight us, you will die. The choice is yours." His words echoed across the land. Some Halorians bowed their heads, choosing to live under human rule. Others clenched their fists, swearing they would never submit. But in both groups, a new thought stirred. Humanity had not come for charity. Humanity had come for survival. Its own survival, as much as the Halorians. The Halorians began to realize something darker still. Humans did not see themselves as conquerors. They saw themselves as nature itself, a storm, a fire, a force that could not be stopped. To them, helping meant reshaping, controlling, bending others to their way. It was not cruelty. It was not kindness. It was simply survival. And survival, to a human, always came with a cost. A Halorian boy who once dreamed of freedom now wore human armor. He marched beside soldiers, proud of his strength. He believed the humans had lifted him out of weakness. His parents wept in silence, wondering if their son was lost or saved. A Halorian elder who once cursed the humans now shared meals with them. He listened to their stories and nodded. Perhaps, he said, our world was dying because we were too soft. Perhaps only Deathworlders can survive the universe. His people called him a traitor. A Halorian mother who once prayed for salvation now prayed for resistance. She watched human soldiers walk her streets and vowed her children would not live under their shadow. The awakening had begun, not just against the humans but within the Halorians themselves. Some awakened to admiration, seeing in humans the future of their people. Others awakened to rage, vowing to fight until their last breath. And in the middle were those who saw the truth most clearly. Humanity was both. Humanity was savior and destroyer, light and shadow. Above them all, the eye. Human fleet circled, patient and unyielding. The Halorians realized a terrible fact. They had not called saviors across the stars. They had called survivors. Survivors from a world so deadly it forged predators in human skin. The humans had not lied when they came. They had said they would help, and they were helping. But their help was not gentle. Their help was fire. Their help was force. Their help was survival, paid for in obedience, sacrifice, and blood. The Halorians stood at a crossroads. To follow the humans meant life without freedom. To resist meant death with pride. And as the stars burned cold above them, a question echoed in every heart. Was survival worth the price of their souls? The final choice. The council hall was silent. Once it had been a place of music and debate where Halorian leaders gathered to share wisdom. Now, its walls were cracked, its roof scorched, and its floors lined with the heavy boots of human guards. The Halorian council sat in fear. Some wore expressions of defiance, others of despair. Above them stood the human commander, her armor reflecting the dim light of the ruined chamber. Behind her, soldiers waited in silence, their weapons ready. The commander's voice broke the silence, calm but sharp as steel. You called for help. We came. And now you must choose. Her words echoed through the hall. We offer survival. We offer strength. But it will be our way. Accept our rule and you will live. Resist us and you will die. This is the law of the universe. This is the law of survival. The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. For weeks, they had argued among themselves. Some believed humanity was a curse, a force of conquest that must be resisted no matter the cost. Others believed humanity was salvation, the only hope their dying world had left. Now the time for arguments was over. The time for choice had come. An elder rose, his voice trembling but firm. Our ancestors gave us this world. They trusted us to protect it. If we surrender now, we betray everything they built. I will not kneel to outsiders, no matter how powerful they are. The council murmured in agreement, but another elder stood quickly. And if we resist, what then? We have seen what their weapons can do. We have seen our fighters crushed in ours. If we resist, there will be no Haloria left to protect. Our children will burn, our homes will vanish, and our people will be nothing but ash. The hall broke into shouts. Voices clashed. Freedom or survival, pride or obedience. The humans stood still, watching, waiting, their faces unreadable. In the shadows of the hall, the youngest counselor rose. She was not as old as the others, her hair still dark, her eyes still sharp. She had watched the humans with careful silence, studying every word, every step, every decision. Now her voice carried across the chamber like fire. "You speak as if the choice is simple," she said, "as if it is only life or death, but listen carefully. Life without freedom is not life, and freedom without strength is not freedom. If we surrender, we lose our souls. If we fight, we may lose our lives. Either path is death. The question is not whether we will die. The question is, how will we live before death finds us?" The council fell silent. Even the human commander turned her eyes toward the young counselor, her lips tightening ever so slightly. The young leader stepped forward. "Humans are not demons. They are not gods. They are survivors. They help, yes, but they help in their way. If we bend, we may live longer, but we will not be Halorians anymore. If we stand, we may be destroyed, but we will die as ourselves." Her words spread through the city like fire. The people gathered in the streets, whispering, shouting, weeping. Families argued at their tables. Some said, "Better to live under humans than to vanish." Others replied, "Better to vanish free than live as slaves." The humans gave them 3 days to decide. Those 3 days were filled with unrest. In the villages, some Halorians raised human banners above their homes, hoping for protection. In the mountains, others sharpened blades and sang songs of war. Mothers held their children and prayed. Fathers stared into the skies, watching the fleet above, and wondered if tomorrow would bring fire. On the 3rd day, the council gathered once more. The human commander returned, her soldiers behind her, her voice calm as ever. "Your time is over. Speak. What is your choice?" The counselors looked at one another. Sweat beaded on their foreheads. Some opened their mouths to surrender. Others clenched their fists to resist. The hall shook with the weight of their indecision. Finally, the youngest counselor rose again. She looked at the commander, her voice steady. "We choose." And then the chamber doors burst open. A shout filled the air. Dozens of Halorians stormed in, carrying weapons, banners, and torches. They were not soldiers, not elders, not leaders. They were the people. Farmers, miners, children barely grown. They cried out as one, "We will not kneel." The human soldiers raised their weapons. The council froze. The commander's eyes narrowed, her hand tightening on her blade. For a heartbeat, the universe held its breath. Would the humans open fire? Would the Halorians charge? Would the council surrender? No one knew. The choice had been made, but the outcome was still hidden. Above them, the fleet circled in silence, its ships like blades in the sky. The humans had promised survival. The Halorians had asked for freedom. Now, only one would remain. The hall trembled with tension. The commander's voice cut through the storm one last time. Then so be it. The final choice had been spoken. But the future, life or death, freedom or chains, remained in shadow. And the stars watched, silent and cold.